Well, continuing with the theme of Louth, and this church here at Louth, where in the last painting, the oil painting, I painted the vista out of here, the whole panoramic view from the top of the tower here. Now we're just down below on the road looking up in perspective at this thing. And I want to do a fairly loose scene, but I want to get some nice attractive colours into it. So let's really delicately push the colours a bit. The sky in the photograph is a little bit bland. I want to make that a bit more interesting anyway. So what I'm going to do first is just wet my paper where the sky is going to go. So in other words, wet the sky. Duh. Right down to the trees. You have to look at an angle to make sure you have wet all the paper. You don't want to leave areas unless you want a hard edge and a light edge somewhere. So I'm just going to get the sky done first, then we'll let that dry. I'm going to delicately put washes and glazes on of various colours, which will give us a lovely effect with this church. So I'm not going to use very strong blues this time. I'm going to take some cobalt. You see, I've got the painting on a very slight angle, and I'm going to put a little touch of rose into that cobalt just to make it a little bit warmer, and we'll go all the way across, right the way down here, all the way down. I'm going to gradually add colour into this to make a graduated wash. So a little bit more rose just up the top here. I want a very pretty picture today, so I'm going to add other colours in while this is still wet. Let's get this all just flowing nicely down, and to go to a little bit of turquoise now, just bring that down around and let that just spread in to give the effect of clouds. Although there's nothing on the photograph, that's what I want on this one. Again, I'll do the same here, just let a bit of the turquoise spread in and give me a slight effect of clouds going on up here. And we're almost there with that. Be careful because I've got a very slight halo going on around the church that I don't really want. But I want a very light effect this time. I don't want it too bright. So I'm coming a little bit more here now with the cobalt, and just give a slightly more cloudy effect up here, just dropping in a bit more and letting the, there we go, and we just let the let gravity do the work for us now. Drop that right in up here. Just around and let gravity do the work for us. So nice and light. Now I want a little bit more colour, so I'm just going to drop a bit more, a little bit of ultramarine up there, just to give a little bit more cloud effect coming up, because I know it's going to dry lighter. So we always know that our watercolour is going to dry slightly lighter. So we want this tower just standing out a little bit up here. I'm going to just drop that blue through and into there, and a little bit higher up there, maybe a little bit more above here as well would be rather nice. And we'll let gravity just do its work now. Okay, next we're going to work on the tower, and we've got the blue coming already over there to give a bit of shadow. I'm going to continue that down by adding a little bit of rose to the mauve. To the blue, sorry, would you give me a mauve? Quite a nice colour like that. And then I shall just bring that down, all the way down across here, right the way down to that side. Remember that, as we say, this is going to be a little bit lighter when it dries, so, and that just comes down into here. Use that same colour, drop it right down through there, some shadow coming through there. We've got the same cooler colour, just blend that out there, and that gives me a cool. And I want to start putting some much lighter colours on here. I'm going to take some chrome yellow and I'm going to drop that all the way across here now as well, right through this building, even into the cools here. And I'll drop a bit of warm into that in a minute. Get some nice delicate colouring right down through here, up and down. In fact, the whole of this bit of building can be done with that. Mix some more up. A bit of paint on this painting sideways, which is quite fun. And I've got to work on this quickly because while this is still wet, I want to come back and drop in some warmer colours into here. You'll see how in a moment. Conditions are fairly warm and dry today, so I'm having to work fairly quickly because I know that this is going to dry out quite fast. Now, while that's still wet, I'm going to take a little bit of that cobalt violet and just drop that down into here to give it a little bit warmer. Now this is called a glaze, because I'm now putting a thin coat of one colour over another, in which case it's making this slightly warmer into this blue. Just bring some of these lovely delicate colours across the stonework there to give a feeling of detail, just an impression of the detail. It's all good fun. Right round this arch here, up into there. That area is in shadow. Now, we were saying about it being, while it's still wet, dropping in colour. I want to drop in some more blue into this area here and let it just go back gently, you see, into the wet paint like that. Be a little bit stronger next. Not that strong, but a little bit stronger. And come down this edge with a slightly darker colour. A mixture of ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt sienna. You can just start to get these dark edges of the steeple coming down. While it's soft, I can just drop those in. Don't want it too strong, just to spread out a little bit into that wet paint. I want the atmosphere of it. And down the side of this here, we'll drop in those little dark bits all the way down. You can see our tower now coming. While it's still wet, drop in some more of the darker colour here. And you can see the light of the tower coming out in the sunshine now. And I want to add a little bit more warmth, so I'm going to take a wee touch of Indian red and just start to drop that in some of these areas to go a wee bit warmer, especially up and around these bits here, down into here in the shadows, which I'm going to make darker anyway in just a moment. Just soften those marks there, a little bit too harsh, a bit of water and just soften them back. Now back to my cobalt violet again. Drop that in stronger still. And I'm going to use a slightly larger brush now. This needs must. And I'm going to drop that violet all the way across this piece of the paper here, only leaving a little highlight here and there of light. And the same here. Take some cobalt this time and drop that in all the way along here. Down through, wet into wet at the moment, just leaving some light areas in between. A little bit of rose, a little bit of cobalt blue to give us a nice gentle purple. The cool stonework this side. To lift out a little, I've lost my light line here, so I'll just take my brush and just lift out some paint there and here. We'll pick these colours out in a moment. Let's just get some basic tones and effects of light going. I'm going to drop down the side of these pillars, an effect of cool shadows down there, without yet doing strong glazes, just indications. Gives us a lovely glow, doesn't it? We'll let that dry off and then we can put more details in when it's dry. So we've done our wet into wet and a little bit of glazing. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to come back to these trees and let's find some of the beautiful colours in there. We'll take some aureolin yellow and quite strongly bring it up into the sky here. Right up and through to the edges. We've got a nice sunny day up here, all the way through there, right the way down here. Right the way through into there. Same the other side. All the way through here, up, exploding out here, right down and through. But I'm going to leave a little bit of white paper this side. I'm going to go all the way through there. I can do the same over here. I'll just drag away some of that paint, make it a bit lighter there. Same down here. I'm going to bring this yellow all the way through down here. Aureolin yellow, a nice transparent yellow, more transparent than lemon yellow, so I prefer it really. So that stays down. There we go. Quite strong just here, especially just there. Now we want to start working some wet into wet, so we're going to take some viridian, which is quite a green, add a little bit of yellow ochre to that, make it a little less green, a bit more yellowy green, and we'll just drop some of that cool green in, wet into wet here. Lovely and soft, wet into wet. Right up and through. Put some green over that church in a minute as well. We'll do some glazing over there so it links in more. Down through here. While I've got that green, we want some of that coming into the bushes and things down here. And it's also happening up into the tree here. Nice and loose, easy painting. Very enjoyable way of painting. Comes down, gets much warmer when it comes into there. And in fact, over this bit just here, it's much stronger yellow, so I'm just going to drop in a bit of much stronger orange yellow just there, like that. Let that tone spread out. Come back to my trees. I'll start making some lovely darks now for the trees. I'm going to take some ultramarine and some yellow ochre, mix that up for my slightly warmer cools into here, drop that in quite strongly because it's transparent behind on the building, but it's not so transparent here in the... Let's get all that going there. A lovely effect of a dark tree against that. Little leaves coming out. So it's breaking out there. Little touches into the brush just to give the feeling of leaves. Down into there. Whole of that is dark, that area there. Now I've got the colour on my brush, go a fraction cooler again, and we'll just drop in more to that shadow, right down to there. More yellow down here, bit of sunshine down here. I'll deal with in a moment. Just got too much dark there, we'll just take a bit out. Ultramarine and yellow ochre again. Let those leaves cascade down outward, right down to here. Now I want to go a bit warm in a minute, so just dropping my bluer cools in. And right down to there. Do the same over here, we need those blues coming into the tree before I go even darker. Now I need to take some burnt sienna and put that with my ultramarine to give a much deeper warm down here. As you can see, it really does start to, it comes all the way down, right down into here. These lovely darks. That makes it so sunny behind. I'm really going to go even darker yet, so we'll really get into these in a minute. We're letting that dry a bit. We're getting the soft effects of the leaves. And I want to get these darks going on behind here. So I can glaze in now. Softly just drop this in so that the whole of this just blends one thing into another. As watercolour can do quite nicely. before we come back to painting the church. Go darker yet. Take some Prussian now. Bit of indigo even as well, and some burnt sienna. And really drop in some darks back here. Let's really get a feeling of the strong sunlight. And the same here. We can drop in a bit warmer into there. Down here amongst these shadows again, make it a bit darker. Quite strong paint now then. Breaking these little twigs out at the end. Moving from oil paint to watercolour is rather fun. It doesn't, we don't get too tied up with either method, and it allows us to be nice and loose. Stronger and stronger with this colour until I feel I've got enough done. Now we'll let that dry off, and then we can come back to doing some more work on the church. I'm just going to drop in a little bit more yellow into the tree while it's still wet. A bit of chrome. Which will blend in, giving a bit more sunlight heaviness around the edge of this work. Right, now we're going to carry on darkening down these tones on here, and I'll go back to my turquoise now. Drop a little bit of turquoise into the roof up here, and a little bit of cerulean, a bit warmer. Down into my palette with that, and these blues will bring them on down into the shadow of the shading of the tower now. And this now is called a glaze, because now I'm putting one colour over another. And darkening it. In doing so, see how we can use one colour over another in watercolour to get this effect of glazing, a bit like one coloured glass over another. Trying to keep this luminosity of the watercolour as well as the stronger colours, using one against the other. These warm reflections in here as well. Find some of this stonework. Well, I've done the basics of the watercolour up here. I'll do a little bit more tightening up in a moment. I'm just going to come down a bit the base of the watercolour, which you haven't really seen yet because it was just off camera, and we just want to tidy up around here. I'm going to use a little bit of purple down there just to deepen into some of the details here, just very loosely. A little bit of purple, a little bit of Indian red. I just want to get a feeling of some sort of brickwork going on along this edge. You can see how we can do that just loosely with the brush. I don't tend to paint very, very delicate, girly watercolours. I'm afraid mine are a bit more masculine, my watercolours. A few more little bits of texture into there maybe. So I'm going to take a smaller brush now and just work a little bit of texture, deep green, in and around some of these areas here. Make it a bit more leafy on these edges. Perhaps a little dottier in places, but I've got very soft edges there, and it might be nice just to make them a bit more textural against the stonework. That's what I'm thinking anyway, that's my way of thought. And by displaying these textures one against another, we get completely different effects again. I would say that we're about there now. Just a little bit of tidying up here and there on details. Not careful we overwork it, so we don't need to do too much more, that's for sure. And that will do for our little watercolour.